So after 6 long and almost hopeless years of no news on a fully fledged Saints Row sequel, we finally have it. We have the announcement that there's a new Saints Row game in the works, and I'm hyped as hell. I'm hyped enough to bring up the age-old, played-out, boring-ass conversation of what I would like in a Saints Row 5. Now, this conversation wasn't always boring as hell. It used to be really fun. It's been frustrating at times, and it seemed to be flat out useless. But now that we have actual confirmation that Saints Row is coming back, it was for something. It wasn't completely useless. Now, I'm not a developer or a writer or an employee at Volition. I'm not one of those guys on Facebook that constantly comments on every post Volition makes, demanding that they make a Saints Row 5, demanding that they make a Saints Row remaster. I don't know shit about game design. I'm just a diehard Saints Row fan, and I've been one for almost 10 years now. And the past 6 years of being a Saints Row fan has boiled down to a lot of speculation and even more of basking over the glory days. And I think whether you picked up Saints Row 1 on launch or Gat Outta Hell was your introduction to the series, that's really what being a Saints Row fan has become over the past half decade. And I guess the insane amount of dedication from the Saints Row fan base, despite not getting much in return in the past half decade, is a little bit sad, but at least we know now that it's building up to something. We have confirmation of a new Saints Row, and I'm hyped as hell. There's been a 6-year hype train for this game that we didn't even know was going to come out until just a few days ago, and for better or for worse, that's just how it is. I'm hyped as hell, and I want everyone else to be hyped too. And I think the best way to do that is to skyrocket everyone's expectations through the roof and hope for the best. And hey, if Volition decide these expectations are a little bit unrealistic, or we'd like to go a different route creatively, that's fine. We can all cry about it and be disappointed together. We're Saints Row fans. It's what we do best. Now, I'm not the first to make a video like this. I doubt I'll be the last. And if you're watching this, I can almost guarantee you've seen Flippy's videos on the matter. If you haven't, I recommend them. And I have some new ideas to bring to the table, but keep in mind there's going to be a couple overlapping ones. And this is because a lot of us want the same thing from this new Saints Row game. A lot of us have been having conversations about what we want from this new Saints Row game for over half a decade now. And it's just good to know that it's at least kinda worth something. So the biggest elephant in the room, the biggest obstacle for Volition, and the most notorious conversation amongst Saints Row fans. Where should they go with the story? Well, realistically, I think they have 3 options. So the first is a full reboot, which means Saints Row with all new characters, or at least reimaginings of existing ones. I like this idea, but it would definitely be sad to see all these beloved characters go. Ultimately, though, I think it would be a worthy sacrifice, with the exception of Gat. Now, I think Volition learned the first time that getting rid of Gat isn't a very good idea, but just in case they get rid of him again, I'd like to at least see Daniel Dae Kim, who's Gat's voice actor, make a return to be a voice for the boss. The second option I can think of is a sequel that ignores some of the game's canon, so like a game that picks up after Saints Row 2, or a game that picks up after Saints Row 3. It's lazy, it would probably piss off a lot of people, but I don't really mind. I'm okay with it, I don't have much to say about it, but it is an option. And the last and probably most desired and talked about option would be a direct sequel that follows the time-traveling ending from Saints Row 4. I'm not inherently against this, it's probably the easiest way they could go, but it wouldn't exactly fix the problems I had with the tone or the characters of the new Saints Row games. Ultimately, I'm a fan of the original tone from the first 2 games, and I'd like them to go back to that. But to have the direct sequel of Saints Row 4, the insane sci-fi game, go back to the old gritty crime games, it'd be a little bit out of place. As for which one of these I prefer the most, I don't really know. They all have their pros and cons. I don't really have an ultimate decision of which one I like more than the others. I'm okay with any of them, really. As for the plot, once they figure out which way they choose to go, if you're keeping the old storyline, I'd really appreciate if they could just resolve all this Dex shit already. I don't think they would devote a whole game to it, and I don't even know if I would really want that, but I'd like to see it at least be part of the prologue, you know, a DLC, a secret mission, something like that. A lot of people would appreciate it. A lot of people would be really happy if we could finally get our revenge on Dex. As for the plot after that, I don't really have any specific ideas. I'd just like it to be at least grounded in reality. I'm really not a fan of all the fourth wall breaking jokes or anything like that. They're gonna do what they're gonna do. I don't know. I guess the biggest request I have plot-wise is I just want the boss back. In Saints Row 3, the boss became a total softie. They make jokes and they forgive their enemies, and I ain't about that shit. I want the boss to go back to business. Seeing them cut off Mr. Sunshine's head or bury Shogo alive was so satisfying to see after the bullshit they put the Saints through. You could say the death of Zinyak was similar, but just a few minutes after that, there's a scene where the Saints share a dance floor with him. It isn't on the same level for me. Also, please let us replay missions and rewatch cutscenes. It's convenient for obvious reasons, and it makes getting footage from Saints Row games much easier. I've got a lot to say about customization. It's probably mine and a lot of other people's favorite aspects of the whole series. It's a huge part of Saints Row. And in my opinion, much like a lot of other areas, Saints Row 2 was the peak of the series when it came to customization. Although I generally prefer the actual clothing options in Saints Row 3 and 4, Saints Row 2 had layered clothing, styling options, and not to mention logos that you could actually put on the clothes. Another feature I'd like to see return is hair length customization. This was featured in Saints Row 1 and it really added some variety to the hair options. Another big feature I'd like to see in Saints Row is an image uploader, much like the ones featured in the WWE games of today. Basically, allow us to upload our own images to put into the game for enhanced customization. This would allow us to make our own tattoos, logos, whatever. As for the clothing stores themselves, Saints Row 2 had a shit ton, but Saints Row 3 and 4 were filled with several Planet Saints or Planet Zin stores throughout the map, with only one of the 3 other clothing stores to see. That's 4 unique stores total. I'd like to see some more. Bring back the old ones, make some new ones, I don't care. Streetwear has grown to incredible popularity since Saints Row 4 was released. Maybe capitalize on that, either for the sake of parody or just to show how it's become such a big part of street culture. I'm always getting new customization ideas, so I'll just leave it at that. This level of customization may sound unnecessary to some people, but many Saints Row fans get lost in this kind of stuff, even going as far as to making up their own backstories for their characters. They definitely appreciate being able to bring their vision to life down to the very last detail. One of the biggest aspects of Saints Row has to be side activities. With so many favorites to choose from, it's gotta be hard for Volition to choose which ones they'll be putting in the new game. Of course, I'd like some old favorites to return, like Fuzz, Insurance Fraud, Fight Club, Professor Genki, all that kind of stuff, but of course, I'd also like some new ones. I don't have any really specific ideas, so I'll just leave it at that. Alright, another big one is online. Co-op is fun, but I'd at least like to be able to play with 3 other people as opposed to just one other friend. I'd also like multiplayer to come back, but I don't think that'll ever happen. How about bringing back the character uploader? Again, going back to the WWE games of today, the community creation system allows you to download people's characters, logos, whatever you want. It's incredibly convenient and it allows creative people to show off their talent. Perhaps the biggest downgrade from Saints Row 2 to 3 was the map. Steelport ain't got shit on Stillwater. So either expand on another redesign of Stillwater or make a new map entirely. Either is fine with me. This is the first fully fledged Saints Row game of this generation of consoles, so take advantage of your new hardware. I'd like to see what everyone else would like to see, what everyone has been saying forever. A varied map with lots of Easter eggs and areas to explore, enterable buildings, interesting pedestrians, interactivity with the environment, destructible shit. I'm putting myself to sleep because we've been talking about this nonstop for 5 years. All the good stuff. Make the city feel alive, and please bring back the day and night cycle, as well as a weather cycle. To cause mayhem, you need weapons, and I'd like most of the weapons in the new Saints Row to be realistic, with a few exceptions. Of course, there's the Pimp Cane and the Pimp Slap, there's the Penetrator. I'd like all these to return, but for at least the campaign, I'd like the weapons to be grounded in reality. Now, if you make it so there's weapons that you can only use in free roaming as opposed to during missions, that's fine. You can go as crazy as you want with those weapons. I just don't want any super OP, ridiculous looking weapons ruining the fun of the campaign. So there you have it. I think I got most of the core stuff out of the way. There's a lot of stuff that I wanted to talk about, but it would have really just been rehashing shit. Like Flippy talks about tone and missions in several of his videos for a long time, and I didn't want to rehash the same shit that he's been saying. I really wanted to focus on stuff that I hadn't heard other people talk about in extensive detail. Volition can do whatever the hell they want. As long as they call it Saints Row, I'm going to buy it. Even if they don't call it Saints Row, I'm going to buy it. And I'm hyped as hell, and I hope you are too.